Chrisean Rock's ex's final moments were captured on camera, and the video has shocked the internet. His abrupt and violent death has left people wondering, was this a tragic accident, or is there something more sinister going on with Chrisean's name already associated with a history of explosive behavior and unending controversy? Her ex had been battling for custody of their child, and now he's gone. Chrisean Rock's ex's story took a serious turn when authorities officially classified it as a homicide, and insiders are allegedly pointing fingers at her as the prime suspect. This isn't just social media speculation anymore, because a public press release confirmed that Ronnie's real name, Karen K, was found. It was a calculated move to eliminate the one person standing in the way of her complicated relationship with Blueface. Let's break down what we know so far. Unresponsive in southern Maryland on February 3rd. The case's details are coming to light quickly, and given Rock's past relationship with Ronnie, many are curious as to how long it will be before her name is formally connected to this investigation. Ronnie had sustained serious injuries in front of a residential home at approximately 7:10 p.m. At first, there were few details available, but after authorities rushed to the scene in Arundel County, Maryland, just 25 minutes outside of Baltimore, attempted life-saving measures, and had him taken to the University of Maryland Baltimore-Washington Medical Center, it was too late. However, his uncle, D. Hill, went on Facebook to confirm what many had feared had happened. Ronnie was a son to him, someone he deeply cared for, and he made it clear that he wasn't buying the idea that this was just some tragic accident. Details weren't adding up, and he wasn't the only one who thought that. Shortly after that, Marin police issued an official press release confirming what many had already suspected, that Ronnie's death wasn't just an unfortunate incident, but rather a homicide. What's more bizarre is that authorities quickly ruled out the possibility that this was a random act of violence, which meant that someone wanted him dead. The question now is who that someone was. The internet hasn't been so quiet about Ronnie's death, though, as people have been pointing out the very public fallout between Chrisean and Ronnie just weeks before his death. Given how explosive their history was, many are wondering if she had anything to do with this with the homicide ruling official. The police aren't just treating this as another street incident. Detectives are gathering evidence. Rock has remained completely silent about Ronnie's passing. Speaking with witnesses and piecing together the facts for those who are unaware, Ronnie and Chrissy had a difficult past, and their problems weren't limited to private matters. In December 2024, Ronnie confronted Chrissy and Rock in a heated public altercation at a shopping mall. "You ran behind them, and I'm trying to yell at them like a doce." He demanded answers, accusing her of keeping his son away from him and calling her out for not acknowledging him. Instead of answering, she called the police on him. "Girl." He didn't take it lightly, publicly blasted her online, and made sure everyone knew exactly how he felt. He called her a rat for involving the police rather than facing him directly, making it clear that in his eyes she had crossed a line that couldn't be undone. "Here, Junior. Right, hear me weird, what's wrong you weird, __. Ain't nobody stalking you, that's my son, that's my son." To Ronnie, that was the ultimate betrayal. She named her child Jesus Porter after the fire, and she claimed that Blueface was the baby's father. She upheld this claim from the start, clearing up any doubts and stating that, in her opinion, there is no doubt as to who the child belongs to. However, not everyone has been persuaded, particularly Ronnie, who in the months before his death had been relentless in challenging her story. He didn't just challenge it in private, he made sure the entire world saw his side by publicly calling her out on the internet. "I have concrete evidence right here for you all. All I want you to do is hold people accountable so that Jesus Porter can have the life he deserves and a father he deserves." He demanded that she take a paternity test to settle the matter once and for all. After he finished politely asking, he put pressure on her every chance he got to make sure she knew that he wasn't going to let it go, because he truly believed he was the real father, and he wasn't backing down until he had proof. When Rock's sister Chastity publicly called him out for lying and saying that no one should believe him, Ronnie's credibility took a hit. She dispelled his claims that he was in the delivery room when Chrisean gave birth and reiterated that he wasn't the father, but Ronnie persisted in demanding the DNA test for Christian Jesus, saying that he was the real father and not Blueface. Despite what Rock had said, people are starting to question everything because this didn't happen overnight. It all unfolded right after Ronnie claimed he had solid proof that he wasn't just talking, he was serious. He said that he and Christian were together in January of the previous year, which was around the time she would have gotten pregnant. He wasn't backing down. He was ready to take action. Ronnie believed the child was his, and that's why Christian was so hesitant to do a DNA test. And now, just weeks later, Ronnie is dead. Ronnie had already taken the situation to court, asking for a DNA test to prove, without a doubt, that Christian's son was his. But for Ronnie, this fight wasn't just about proving paternity, it was about protecting the child. He felt strongly that Christian wasn't giving her son the care he needed. Ronnie couldn't just sit back and watch someone else take on the role of the real father. He didn't want to be in that position, but he felt like he had no other choice. In this battle, Ronnie wasn't just fighting for his biological rights, he was fighting to give the child the stability and support he deserved. He was doing it for the child's future, not just out of spite or anger. But now, with Ronnie gone, the fight has come to a halt before it even had a chance to truly begin. The relationship between Ronnie and Christian wasn't something casual. This was the same man who had once saved Christian's life when she was in college. He had put everything on the line for her, showing that he cared deeply. And now, years later, he was ready to do the same for his son. But this time, he was doing it because he felt it was his responsibility to step up and protect the child. Ronnie had made it clear that he wasn't going to back down. He took his fight to the courts because he wanted to prove his point. He wasn't doing this for the drama or for the attention. He was doing it because he believed that his son deserved a chance at a better life, one where he could count on the support of both his biological father and his family. It was about giving the child the kind of stability and care he wasn't sure he would get from Christian. But now that Ronnie is gone, everything has changed. The battle he started has come to an abrupt end, and with it, the hope of giving the child a stable future seems uncertain. It's a sad twist of fate, and now, no one knows what will happen next. Ronnie had so much more to give, but in the end, it was too late to finish what he had started. Chrisean was never one to follow the rules, and if things weren't going her way, she wasn't going to sit back and let the law decide. With the pressure building and the stakes rising, it was only a matter of time until she handled things her own way. Anyone paying attention could see that this was headed toward disaster. System filing in court for an eternity test, but despite the official order, Cran refused to comply, allegedly ignoring the legal process entirely. He should have seen it coming. Blueface's devotion to him was so intense and all-consuming that she literally inked his face on her own body. This wasn't just a declaration, it was a permanent mark that proved she was his and no one else's. She wore her loyalty like armor, making sure the world knew exactly where she stood, and if that meant putting an end to anyone who attempted to question her role in Blueface's life, then so be it. It was obvious that she wasn't going to take the accusations lightly because they threatened to ruin the fantasy she had created. This wasn't just about establishing the father's identity, it was about control in her mind. Nothing, not even an X or a DNA test, could stop her and Blueface from being together. Their whole relationship was a ticking time bomb, a catastrophe playing out right in front of her eyes. It was the kind of train wreck you knew was going to go awry. But no matter how bad things got, you couldn't turn away, not even Blueface. Had doubts behind the scenes and wasn't taking Christian's word for it, so he secretly collected a DNA sample to get his own answers and ran a paternity test on baby Christian Jr. when the results showed that he wasn't the father. Blueface wasted no time in making the revelation public and expressing his relief at being out of that predicament. He walked away and made sure everyone knew why, and he didn't hold back when it came to exposing Chan, portraying her as a serial manipulator who went to great lengths to deceive everyone. He broke down the details, pointing out something that made everyone take a second look at her. Hospitals don't usually permit filming in delivery rooms, but Chrisean found one that did, explaining that it was never about the baby, but rather about attention. She wanted to create the perfect image to control the narrative and ensure that everyone saw her as a loving mother while maintaining their emotional investment in her story. The details didn't add up, and the more he investigated it, the more certain he became that there was much more to Chan's story. He said that everything had been planned, from the timing of her trip to Baltimore weeks before her due date to making sure that cameras were rolling at every important moment. This is where things became even more suspicious, he said, because Chan seemed strangely knowledgeable about the entire birthing process for someone having her first child, almost as if she had done it before to him. As she was letting Sean go live on work, she sobbed and said, "I'm a terrible guy." Everything about her fame was pre-planned, including the makeup, jewelry, nails, and jewelry. Her claim to fame was sympathy. Whenever he questioned her, her go-to tactic was always the same: call him a terrible person and shift the blame. But behind the scenes, he was the one who paid for everything: makeup, clothes, rent, and her entire lifestyle. He was beginning to see the pattern, and he wasn't the only one. According to sources, Chrisean wasn't just upset with Blueface for raising doubts. She was also upset with Ronnie, whom she accused of inciting a chain of events that she couldn't control by putting the idea of a paternity test in Blueface's head. If what insiders are saying is accurate, she wasn't going to overlook that, which is how Ronnie Doe died. All he wanted was to step up and care for a child he thought was his, and he was concerned about the kind of life Jesus Porter would have, particularly given all the worries about Chan drinking while pregnant. But it was too late for Ronnie, and this evidence suggests that it may already be too late for Jesus Porter to defend him. Ronnie Doe had been fighting for custody of the child, believing that Chrisean Rock was unfit to care for him, and he wasn't the only one who was concerned. Fans had been gathering unsettling evidence that painted a bleak picture of the child's condition, and videos of the infant barely reacting began to circulate online. He didn't reach out or interact with the world like most babies do. Instead, he just stared off into space, his eyes wide and unfocused, his head frequently drooping, his movement appearing weak and uncoordinated. And before long, people began drawing comparisons, pointing out that his symptoms mirrored those of fetal alcohol syndrome and the outcome that many had feared given Chan's reckless behavior during her pregnancy. Whether it was FES or something else, there was no denying that this baby was not thriving. Every new video and every public appearance only made the situation worse. Ronnie wasn't going to sit back and pretend everything was fine. He was actively fighting for a court-ordered DNA test, not only to determine whether he was the father, but also because he knew the child needed help. It was about stepping in to make sure the baby got the care he sorely needed, and the more people watched, the more obvious it became that something wasn't right. There are several videos showing disturbing moments of Rock handling her baby, and each one seems more disturbing than the last. In one clip, she's sitting back in a salon chair, getting her eyelashes done, completely unfazed, while her baby cries. However, what shocked people the most was how casually she bottle-fed him with one hand, as if he were an afterthought. Viewers were horrified not only by the lack of concern, but also by the obvious choking hazard and the fact that this isn't a one-time thing. Her discomfort was evident, but she showed no real urgency or care. This was just another moment captured on camera that left people wondering if she was even paying attention to what was happening right in front of music, her kingdom. His tiny head flops around without support, his body limp in her arms as she pays more attention to her manic than his well-being. People close to Chrisean, including her friends and family, have acknowledged that she loses it whenever someone tries to step in. She doesn't take advice or help. Instead, she reacts with immediate defensiveness and flips out if someone questions how she cares for her baby. She has been caught holding him incorrectly, feeding him in dangerous positions, or simply neglecting him while preoccupied with something else. The most shocking part is that no one around her steps in, but there's a reason for that. Chan finally made the decision to speak out about her growing concerns about her baby's obvious signs of fetal alcohol syndrome, delayed motor skills, and even the possibility that he might be blind. However, rather than treating the situation with the seriousness it deserved, She treated it like just another opportunity to profit from it. The sister allegedly attempted to take the baby to the hospital out of concern for his health, but Chon panicked and refused to explain why, because she was afraid they would discover the truth that her child was being neglected. Instead of making a sincere statement or reassuring anyone about her child's health, she went straight to Snapchat, her biggest moneymaker, where she gets paid by the views. Instead of providing clarity or even addressing people's concerns, she turned the entire situation into a promotional stunt. We ain't talking about you, baby, because it don't get you viewed. You can't talk about your own cage, you know, Wyatt. Talking about what's most talked about in one clip, she's laughing as if nothing is serious and dismissing the comments as if they're just haters exaggerating while people are actually concerned about her baby's welfare. She's also promoting her new music as if the conversations surrounding her son are just background noise, and if that wasn't bad enough, she goes one step further and plugs her flag. Football League like it's all part of some marketing rollout, with no time for introspection or addressing the obvious struggles her baby is going through. It's just another way to keep the focus on her while utterly ignoring the reality of the situation. No, he's not blind. He's not __. He's a child. But it's cool nonetheless, and it's really cool how you all just sit up and talk about it. I don't give her, you know what I mean? I really don't give you. And that's when it clicked for many. This baby wasn't about family love or responsibility for her. Instead, he was about clout and promotion. Chrisean may try to ignore it, but as Junior gets older, it's becoming harder to ignore that something is seriously wrong with his development. People are beginning to notice, even Blueface's mother Carissa Saffold, who came forward to say that she saw this coming from the beginning and that she knew the baby had serious neurological problems, and she was fully aware of the reasons why Chrisean continued to drink during her pregnancy. Although she could try to minimize it, reality was setting in and she couldn't continue to hide what was happening in front of everyone. Carissa didn't waste any time voicing her opinions when the murder of Ronnie was announced. She took to Instagram and shared a story that made it very clear where she stood after everything she had seen from Chrisean. It seemed as though she had reached her breaking point, and instead of, when she expressed shock or sympathy, her response was one of complete relief. She freely acknowledged that she was glad her son was in jail because, at least, he was far away from Chon and whatever chaos she was causing in the world. It says a lot that a mother would rather have her child behind bars than deal with a certain person in the real world, and it shows how dangerous she thinks Chrisean is. One video that recently came to light is shocking people on social media. A guy secretly filmed Chon at a club, clearly pregnant, with a noticeable belly bump, casually throwing back a shot as if it were nothing. She did it quickly, likely thinking that no one was watching, thinking that money was cool and that she would have to answer to him when he came on. If you still believe that didn't affect her baby, just look at the heartbreaking footage of him now. His head shape isn't normal, his limbs seem weak, and every little movement looks. His breathing appears labored, as if simply existing is exhausting for him. However, let's examine how Chrisean's reckless behavior not only affected her child, but also significantly strained her relationship with Blueface Chon. Their relationship has always been a toxic whirlwind, and most people assume that their breakup was due to their typical chaos. However, her reckless and dangerous behavior wasn't just something that fans conjectured about, it was something. People began piecing together what Blueface had to go through after witnessing how she treated her child, how carelessly she handled him, and the dangerous situations she put him in on a regular basis. Ronnie witnessed this behavior and attempted to call it out before he was removed from the picture, but Blueface was dealing with it directly. It's no accident that Blueface eventually began to distance himself once he realized how bad things were getting. Something about this was different, and if a guy who was willing to put up with their frequent public arguments, physical altercations, and general chaos suddenly decides he's done, that says a lot. One viral video showed how out of control things had gotten between Chrissy and Blueface. She wasn't just in love with him, she was obsessed, and she had his face tattooed on her. She repeatedly said that she would do anything for him, but when things didn't work out, it quickly turned violent. Chrisean is seen physically assaulting Blueface in public, swinging on him repeatedly as he tries to flee. He backs up in an attempt to defuse the situation, but she isn't letting it go and relentlessly pursues him, making it clear that walking away wasn't an option. What could Blueface have done to set her off like this? Supposedly, he had just discovered that she had been cheating on it, and instead of accepting responsibility or even making an effort to apologize, Chan did what she does best. She lost it and took it out on him. She didn't just argue or deny it. Instead, she beat him in the middle of the street, demonstrating to everyone that when Chan feels cornered, she fights back in the most explosive way possible. Another unsettling video that surfaced showed the aftermath of one of Blueface and Chan's violent altercations, this time showing Blueface attempting to de-escalate though. The clip was unsettling not only because of his injuries, but also because of how eerily calm he was about it, as if this was just another day in their toxic cycle. Instead of reacting with anger or even defending himself, he was focused on calmly calming Chrisean after she had already broken his head open, leaving him bleeding. You want to see what it looks like? But I'm not, so I'm going to put this paper towel right here, put my head on, and do what nuts would do. Her violent outbursts weren't a one-time incident. They happened repeatedly, and fans began to notice a pattern. People knew that they had a somewhat toxic relationship, but the truth was that it was an abusive situation. She was in full meltdown mode, sitting in his car, completely unraveling while he sat there bleeding and still trying to talk her down. He handled it like it was routine. Been caught on camera acting completely insane. There is ample evidence that she thrives on chaos, and now that a homicide investigation is underway, her past could come back to haunt her in a way she never anticipated. Authorities don't even need to look very far to find a pattern. She's already laid it all out for them. Videos of her violent outbursts are all over the internet, demonstrating how easily she loses control, from getting physical with Blueface to swinging on strangers. It's dangerously easy to think that she might be capable of something much worse, and the most telling sign is her silence. Rather than confronting the issue or attempting to clear her name, she's drawing even more attention to herself by remaining silent, almost as if she's waiting for the storm to pass. However, with the feds closing in, with the investigation proceeding and the evidence being pieced together, it may be impossible for her to get the evidence. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, click on one of the videos on your screen to explore more content from our channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more. Whether she had a direct hand in what happened or not, her past actions are painting a picture that she might not be able to talk her way out of.